Hey, we're the Royal Fumblers. I got Danny the Mouth here. I am Drewski. Brady will be on other videos, but maybe not this one. Right now, we're talking about the AFC South, and we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars that we're going to be talking about. Big team, big changes in that team that happened in the offseason, including, what people say is a premium, once in a decade type quarterback joining the roster. Danny, tell me about Jacksonville.
Look, Jacksonville is so overrated. And what people are forgetting is,
I mean, they were
Trevor
terrible
Lawrence.
last year, so it's tough to be overrated.
Well, that's the thing is, everyone's like, oh, they're going to make a huge splash this year. No, they're not. Trevor Lawrence, all right, he's got the talent. The problem is he doesn't have the right coach behind him. Urban Meyer is going to fail just like Steve Spurrier did, just like Urban Meyer, just like Nick Saban. I mean,
Urban Meyer is going to fail just like Urban Meyer did
well,
before.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of Les Miles. My bad. But either way, I mean, these guys that have won national championships in college do not come to the pros and win. I mean, it is what it is. Lane Kiffin's another one. And it's just one of those things. I mean, you can't come in to the NFL after having so much success in college, because in college, you're dealing with boys. You can boss them around. You can threaten to take away their scholarship. When you get to the NFL, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to fine you. He's going to tell you, I don't care. You're going to fine me? Fine. I'll quit. I'll go ahead and request a trade. I'll make it so bad in this locker room, you won't want me here. And then they're going to go to another team and say, yeah, I'm winning now. You're not. So, I mean, it's one of those things. College coaches don't come to the NFL and do well. Now, the one thing I do like that they did was sign Tim Tebow. And it's one of those things. Jacksonville needs God in its life. You guys need Jesus. And with that is where you're going to have success. And everyone's like, why would they pick him up? He was horrible. He was horrible as a quarterback. But he has started NFL games, including a playoff win with the Denver Broncos at quarterback. Now, is he going to play quarterback? No, they already said it. He's trying out for tight end. Why do they want him at tight end? Because then you can use him like the Saints use Taysom Hill. You can put him in the Wildcat. You can put him in the backfield. You can line him up as a wide receiver. You can put him on kickoffs. Special teams, I mean, he can do it all. And it's one of those things. He's played quarterback in the NFL. So you can hand the ball off to him and have him throw it down the field.
Absolutely. You got an emergency backup quarterback in the worst case scenario. You have a guy that he's an athlete. You can say whatever you want about him as a quarterback, but as an athlete, he's a high-end athlete. You can do trick plays and all sorts of sets that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do in it. And it's going to be in very specific situations that he'll play. He probably won't be the starting tight end, but he'll get out there and play from time to time. And he'll change things up. I do like DJ Chark is being underdrafted right now on ADP, considering that they're going to go to a pass heavy. They're probably going to do a lot of passing. He's going to be the number one target. He just probably will be. Laviska Shenault is probably not. I don't trust Laviska Shenault, so I'm going to avoid him, even though on late rounds. But I think you can get DJ Chark right now in the 70s, and I feel like you could pick him up, and he's a sneaky, strong flex pick. You could also end up getting James Robinson has lost value. They drafted a second. They drafted the is it Etienne?
You know what? And that was a slap in the face after what he did for you last year with that atrocious offense. And you're going to slap him in the face and bring in a new running back. The guy got 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, this kid gave you everything he had, and he was undrafted. Hey, let's go waste a draft pick and pick up another running back. You have a guy that's proven out there, that's done the work, made you happy, and we're going to go ahead and get someone else. This is no different than the Green Bay Packers Aaron Rodgers situation.
I think it's a little different only because I think they end up going to a split back on time. They end up saving somebody like James Robinson. They're different enough backs that they can have value. Do I hate it for fantasy purposes? Absolutely. Do I think that it's a reasonable thing to do? You get a guy that has you get your high-end quarterback that's going to have a familiar face and a guy that he trusts to go along with it, and they'll do probably a 50-50 split backfield or a 60-40, and neither of them are going to have any kind of major value. That stated, I don't hate the move. I understand it. I also don't like it either. So I think it just destroys fantasy value. And I think that's kind of it in a short. I don't trust any of these guys aside from Chark. I really don't trust anybody to draft as my one position or my two position.
Well, I'm going to say this right now. The running back is a dying breed, not only in the NFL, but in fantasy relevance. I mean, over the last few years, we've seen it where, the ability to pick up a good running back every year is getting smaller and smaller just because teams are leaning more towards the passing game. And then most teams have a committee system going in their backfield. So you got to hope you pick the right guy on the right week.
Absolutely. Weird moment, half at home because we are live. Anyway, I think that's all we really got to talk about with the Jaguars. It's going to be interesting watching them progress this year. I don't expect much out of them, but I do think they're going to be better than they were last year. And we'll see how it goes from there. All right, let's go on to the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. We are talking the AFC South, and our next team has just dropped off any kind of. They're completely awful right now. They're a mess. They are a complete mess, and I would be surprised if they win 4 games. I'm talking about the Houston Texans. I would be surprised if Deshaun Watson ends up playing this year after all the mess and the allegations that he's going through. They lost Will Fuller, who already he was dealing with some issues off the field. But if they're not even good enough to have Will Fuller on the field, he's gone. They have nobody they barely have anybody to catch the ball. They don't have anybody to throw the ball. They barely have anybody that can run the ball. I don't trust. I think David Johnson is still there right now. But why? So let's just say the Houston Texans are pretty much invalid. Do you agree, Danny?
Totally. This is a huge dumpster fire. And it's not even, hey, let's go ahead and take a season to rebuild. Your staff, your GM, the owner, get rid of it all. You might even want to consider leaving Houston. It's that bad. For everything that happened, trading away one of the best wide receivers still in his prime, letting go your best defensive player ever in J.J. Watt. You have guys that are on, performance-enhancing drugs. Your quarterback has multiple sexual assault allegations. Your former coach is a dumbass. And, it's just one of those things. There's something going on there. The question is, did Watson want to be traded because he feels that there's some kind of issue with the front office? Or did he want to be traded because he knew these allegations were going to come up and he just wanted to get out of Houston before this happened? Me personally, I think there's something going on in the front office. And I say that because why would JJ want to leave? Why would Hawkins want to leave? There's so many guys that want out of Houston. That tells me there's a problem between the ownership and the players, and no one wants to play there. It's not going to get any better until there's a new owner, new GM, new head coach, and then you start from scratch. Houston is a dumpster fire. Sell the team, let them move, send them to San Antonio. Just do something. Get them out of Houston.
Get them out of Houston. Sell them to Mexico. Moving on. All right, so we're talking the AFC South, and we're going to talk about Tennessee and the Titans. Look, this is a team that kind of has been relevant the last few years. That has been a little bit of a older style offense, but they still make they still do a little bit of passing. They still have a valid wide receiver. They have a tough as nails running back, a quality defense. They just kind of get it done with tough football on both ends of the field. And Danny, tell me about these guys this upcoming season.
Look, the Tennessee Titans the last couple of years have been a team that goes out there, gets into the playoffs, and goes deep without, having the flashy names. I mean, yeah, all right, they got Derrick Henry, but when you start to think about it, there's no one else that just jumps off your tongue when you talk about the Tennessee Titans. That defense is good year in, year out. A.J. Brown has been phenomenal since he's gotten into the league. You got Derrick Henry being Derrick Henry, and I don't think he's going to change any. Even Tannehill has overperformed what anyone thought he would do. And I was really surprised because I think we all wanted to see Tennessee have this success with Marcus Mariota, but Tannehill came in and saved the day. I mean, he's running that team in the way that it needs to be ran. He's not this flashy quarterback that like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, but he makes the passes when he needs to make them. And then he has a phenomenal run game to take that pressure off him. So he's not being forced to throw all the time.
Right on. No. So in terms of fantasy purposes, I'd say that A.J. Brown, he's definitely a wide receiver one. He should expect to get most every target. There's really just no second option right now. But he's been amazing when he's played. They thought he was going to do, he's going to step back last season. He actually started out a little bit injured, a little bit hurt, and then came out when he played full games. He was amazing. Derrick Henry, they keep saying he's going to get injured, he's going to wear down, but that guy just looks stronger and stronger. He's a freaking Sasquatch, just knocking people over.
His stiff arm. I mean, he's throwing safeties and corners like they're rag dolls. He's using some of the best defensive players in the NFL as his own personal blocking dummies. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. How can you hate on him? He's a top 5 running back every year.
The thing I like about him as a top 5 running back, especially, is that you have a level of volatility with some of the other ones. They tend to get injured. Derrick Henry's just been strong. He might not score. He might not have the ceiling that, as say, like Saquon Barkley might have, but that he's not going to have. But his floor is extremely high, and he's going to get the job done. So, I like him. I'd say I draft him top 5 in pretty much any fantasy anything.
I honestly,
especially a non-PPR.
I honestly believe that fantasy commissioners need to set it up where you get an extra 10 points for every defensive player Derrick Henry embarrasses out there on the field, whether it's a stiff arm that throws him out of the play or using him as a blocking dummy. He needs the extra points just because that's how fun it is to watch Derrick Henry. And the guys that draft Derrick Henry deserve the extra credit.
I agree. I absolutely agree. There needs to be like an extra half point for every time, for every yard. Like, he leads the league in yards after the first hit. He actually has more yards after his first hit than Nick Chubb had in total yardage last season in running. So that should tell you how big of a monster he really is.
And the funny part is most running backs are trying to avoid contact. He's looking for it. He wants it.
Yeah, he is. And the thing, in all of that, you forget. You just think of how strong he is. He's fast too. He's not slow. He's got a good top speed. So, yeah, the guy, he's a juggernaut. Nothing stops the juggernaut. And with that, everything that you need to know about the Titans. Let's go on to the next. Welcome back to the Royal Fumblers. We've got the Indianapolis Colts that we're going to be discussing. And the Colts are a quality, solid team, top to bottom, but they have one major change. To me, the biggest change that they have coming in is what?
Quarterback. Philip Rivers finally retired. He went up there, made a few extra bucks to support his 35 kids that he has. But they brought in Carson Wentz, and everyone's like, Carson Wentz is washed up. He's horrible. He's been injury prone. I'll give you that. But the talent's there. And everyone's like, well, look what he did last year in Philly. Well, yeah, Philly was a dumpster fire. What you guys are failing to recognize is Carson Wentz has now been reunited with head coach Frank Wright. I think that's it. I got the name right. Yeah. Either way, drink.
Yeah, Frank Wright is their coach. But yeah, so they're being reunited. Carson Wentz.
Fun fact: he used to be the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. Had a little bit of success there, not much though. But either way, here it is. They're reunited, and Carson Wentz had some of his best seasons with him as the offensive coordinator at Philly. So therefore, he knows what Carson can do. He knows what system to put in for Carson. And the one thing that Carson Wentz is going to have finally is a good offensive line again, a running game, and some targets to throw to. Now, their wide receiver core is not great, in my opinion. I mean, T.Y. Hilton's okay, but he's been missing for the last year and a half. But at the same time, Carson is going to have such a better season this year than he's had in the last 2 years, in my opinion. And Indy is going to win the South.
That's a huge statement. I'm going to go ahead and say that, yeah, they got T.Y. Hilton, and he's trustworthy enough. I actually expect Michael Pittman, who's a bit of a speedster, I think he'll have a better season than he had last season. And it's definitely, regardless of whether or not they have as many targets or the quality of targets are that good, there's still an upgrade of what he had in Philadelphia. I mean, which he had no targets. I mean, what did he have there, Rager?
Well, you had that one guy that caught the kids from that one fire. I think the Eagles signed him for a week. I mean, seriously, the last year up in Philly, he was set up for failure. When he had all of that success up there in Philly, Philly had a great offensive line. And, he had a couple weapons at wide receiver. He always had Zach Ertz to fall back on. Well, Zach Ertz disappeared, and then no other wide receivers for the last 2 years. No running game to support him, and a weak offensive line. Any quarterback's going to fail. It was a miracle Jalen Hurts did as well as he did.
Absolutely. I'm not familiar with a tight end on the Indianapolis Colts, but I believe that's going to be a potential, I'm not familiar. I can't think of it. And
I think it's Doyle, ain't it?
Is it?
I think so. I think he's still there.
So he's going to be a guy that they'll dump off. Carson Wentz is going to dump it off to a tight end at some point. I also believe that John Taylor is going to get a lot of passing, a lot of reception. He'll get a lot of PPR value just because they'll dump it off. He'll pick a target to dump it off to somewhere. And if it's going to be John Taylor, it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be a monster this year. I think he's going to be I think he's going to be a top 5 back. I really do. And there's enough downfield value to keep people honest. They can't just stack the box and be done with it. So I think Jonathan Taylor is going to have high value. I think Carson Wentz is not somebody I would draft as my QB1, but maybe, a low-end QB2.
Right now they have Mo Alley Cox as a tight end and Jack Doyle are their 2 top tight ends. And then they have Granson. So, there's 3 tight ends right there. But Jack Doyle, he's spotty. But, again, the tight end position has been one of Carson Wentz's favorite targets over the years. So you can't go wrong with either one of them.
As a late round kind of guy to pick up.
Right. You might want to consider already having a tight end before you go to these guys, but it's one of those things. Their value, you can buy them cheap, and sell them high because Carson loves his tight ends.
Yeah, that's a potential. I definitely think in terms of value, the potential for that, if you consider players stocks, that's a potential that one has potential to go off. If nothing else, if it doesn't go off, you just drop it and you're done.
Now, I would not buy any of their running backs because, I mean, that's the thing is this is going to be a
you
team
wouldn't
that's
buy
going
Jonathan
to –
Taylor?
no, because he's going to be sharing a little bit of the work with Hines and Mack.
That's possible, but I mean, I looked at late seasons. Even when Hines was healthy, it was still a 70-30 share in the last 4 games. So it's possible. But if they're smart, they shouldn't overwork Taylor and get him injured. So
Yeah,
I would totally pick up Taylor, but I get your point. I think you got I think you got a very valid point. Do you want to use him on a high end, on a high end pick when he may only be getting a split share?
I mean, this is something I've said before. It's the running back position is a dying breed in the NFL and in fantasy. I mean, the value there is not there anymore. And it's because the league's transitioning to a more pass heavy offense. And, the big bruising running backs are not going to be around much longer and their value's not there. And then on top of that, you're trying to conserve them because the thing is, the guys that are playing football, they're getting bigger, faster, stronger, and it's so easy to get injured, especially in the running back position, because your job is to go get hit almost immediately once you get the ball.
And when you're not running the ball, you're blocking. So your job is to get hit more. Exactly. There is no downtime for a running back.
So, I mean, that's why the lifespan on a running back is so low. I mean, if you look at, I think the average, most of these guys retire after 10 years. They're not like Tom Brady.
The average lifespan of an NFL running back is 3.5 years.
See? I mean, even when the guys get past that, they might play 10 years at the most.
I mean, you got your Frank Gores of the world, but like, that's about it. What else you got?
So, but the thing is, when you break it down, the NFL. Adrian Peterson had a couple of years off, though. But the thing is, though, is here it is. The NFL's changed so much. So now teams are not using the running back position like they used to. And on top of that, they're going to these committee backs. So when it comes down to fantasy, unless you get lucky, you grab someone that you know for sure that's going to take most of the reps. Cook, Barkley, Elliott, Henry. You have to
honestly, I just off topic, I think Eckler is a top 6 running back this season. I think he's going to be amazing this season, but partially because he's a pass catching back. He's not taking those direct hits like some other ones do.
And I mean, it's just one of those things, though. I mean, when you look at it, the NFL's changed so much. So that's why I'm saying I'm skeptical of taking any running back out of Indy just because they have so many options there. And I guarantee you that, I mean, right now on their roster, they got like 7 guys for running back. But there's 3 in my mind that stand out, and that's Hines, Mack, and Taylor. And I can tell you, all 3 of these boys will be on that roster week 1. And what's going to happen is they're all going to be splitting it. Now, Taylor should be the one getting the most fantasy relevance, but you never know because we've seen out in San Francisco, 49ers, with Coleman. 1 week, he's getting you 30, 40 points on fantasy because he got 5 touchdowns. Then the next week, he got 3 yards.
Next week, it's Raheem Mostert, and the next week, it's someone else altogether. Heck, we saw Britta go off for like 40 points in a couple of years back. And what happened to him? Like, where is he at now? The Jets, maybe?
He's not relevant. And I mean, that's the
exactly
thing
the point.
The whole thing is right now it's so hard to buy running backs in fantasy. And the thing is you have to look at it. Do you go ahead in your first round, try to pick up one of the big 5 running backs or big 6 just because you know they're not going to be there by round 2 and sacrifice another position and hope that, your second pick, you get one of the top end wide receivers or a quarterback, just because that's where your consistency is going to be for the rest of the season.
I'm with you. All right. I will say that I do consider the Indianapolis Colts a relative, their defense is a one that you could put on your roster as a baseline. You'd still probably want to stream a second option for like good matchups or whatnot from time to time. But I think they're a great baseline defense option.
I used them all year last year, and I have no regrets.
Heard. All right. And with that, let's move on.